Hey everyone, my name's Jad, and I read 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel García Márquez so that you don't have to. To begin with, I'm just going to hit on the main questions that the novel poses, particularly who, what, where, when, why. And I'll include how, just for fun. We can talk about that later. So, when we're thinking about who this novel is about, it's about the Buendia family, particularly the 7 generations. Starts all the way back, we can think about the time here, starts around the 16th century, and I guess it's kind of marked with the first arrival of the Buendias during also the time of Francis Drake, Sir Francis Drake. So it starts around the 16th century and it concludes around the 20th century. But as you've probably heard people discuss in the topic of time, when is actually a very big question because the novel does jump around in different time periods and the novel talks about past, future, and present quite a lot. So these are good questions to ask if you're discussing this with a partner or if you're discussing this in a book club or for a university class. Where is this novel based? That answer is pretty simple. It's based in Macondo, which is a small settlement or small village based in what we would now consider Colombia. But it generally talks about that geographic location, talks about Latin America, talks about that particular culture and colonial influence in Latin America and South America. What is the novel about? The novel, as you might think about the title, talks a little bit about solitude, but solitude is such a complex topic to talk about or to write about for 400 pages. So I'll also talk about solitude in terms of time perception. When we think about solitude, if we wanted to cut that word up, we might say soul, or when we think about soul being S-O-L-E, being another word for only or one. And even though this novel is about the Buendia family, not just one particular person, it also talks about how people are alone and they function as one. And this could be by themselves as individuals or as an individual unit, so as a group of people or as a group of family members in that case. So it is quite a nice idea to think about what does solitude mean in terms of how people in this novel are perceiving it. So the characters, the narrator, etc. So there's no quick and easy answer there, but that's my answer here, time perception and solitude. Why is this novel? Now we could think that this novel was written for the purpose of, I'd say, in my opinion, communicating ideas of modernity, communicating ideas of history, and I'd say here preservation, and I would say culture. Since this is, I would say, in my opinion, a cultural text. It's a document, an artifact that people will continue to look through and study for many, many years. I'm just going to also underline culture here because it's very particular to culture that is brought into the area in the book and as well as in real life. I'm talking here about imperialistic culture, colonial culture, indigenous culture, and then the hybrid culture that exists within Latin America today and as well as the novel. How I would say that this novel is, I would say talking about the genre, this is fiction. I'd say it's historical fiction. And I would say that the style, the artistic style or the artistic movement that's behind this that pushes the novel forward is magic realism. Now, if you haven't heard that term before, you might have heard the term surrealism. You might have studied that in 20th century history. Both of those styles, both of those artistic movements, magic realism and surrealism, came about in the 20th century. They are not synonymous, though. Magic realism or magical realism is used to describe a real, lived, or historical experience by using magic to explain or rationalize events and actions, whereas surrealism takes place in an unrealistic situation and uses other sorts of whimsical, magical, dream-like experiences or ideas to describe unrealistic experiences. So you might think of surrealist texts as a little bit like Alice in Wonderland. And even though that was a novel written in the 19th century, we can see that aspects are quite fluid between this 19th, 20th century, 21st century genre as we skip around. There you have it. That's a quick idea of what this novel is about. In my next video, I'll go into more detail. Thank you so much.